is selling people software. It's boring, horrible, forcing people to buy contracts. And so I'm finally excited to use my sales skills for good and actually help people. And I'm really excited for this class because I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Because I probably do the same as you, Tim. Make it up.
Awesome. Okay, so for today, we're hoping to get most of the content done within the first hour. We have block boxes to practice on. And depending on your time, I know a couple of you need to leave, whatever. If you have time and you want to stick around after, we can take a field trip. Like Scott and I can take a couple, and I can go with a few people, and we can go to a model home and just walk through the house as if we're going to be showing. So we can do that a little later if you guys are interested. So benefits of the program. What did you get out of being a showing assistant?
Well, one is every house I showed was a neighborhood that I probably hadn't been in before ever. So I really learned a lot about different parts of town, different neighborhoods. I also learned just what, kind of on the fly a little bit, what to bring to a showing, what sort of questions buyers ask, what they're looking at, just a lot of experience with how to deal with buyers. They were my own real buyers. So by the time I had my very first buyer, I had shown a lot of houses, and I felt much more comfortable doing it than, I still probably fumbled with the lockbox when I was opening the door, but I felt much more comfortable doing it.
You'll always fumble with lockboxes. That never goes away. So, we've kind of put this together for a handful of reasons. We want you guys to learn. You are always learning. I've been doing this 6 years, almost 4 years. Every time I am with a client or doing research online or setting up a show, I'm learning something new or seeing something I have never seen before. So you're constantly in a state of learning. So I think that going out and getting these experiences would just be huge for you. This is a huge opportunity for you guys to build relationships with other agents in the office. Personally, I got started as a showing assistant for Mark Bauer. He has always had a huge business, too many buyers than he was able to juggle. And so I started showing houses for him. But, building that relationship and learning from someone who does a business kind of the way you want to run your own is a huge learning opportunity for you. So take advantage of learning from other agents that are in the office, because there are so many really amazing agents around here that do huge business. And they either have so much that they need a hand occasionally. They have all kinds of reasons. There are agents in here, they just don't want to work on Sundays, period. That's their family days. So if that's the case, they don't want to show houses on Sundays. They need somebody to do that for them. So it's an opportunity for you guys to kind of fill in the gaps, build those relationships, make a little bit of money, and learn along the way. Just huge experience opportunities for you guys.
That relationship piece, I think, is big. When push comes to shove, you've got your own contract you're dealing with, and you need to ask somebody questions, and it's Saturday afternoon. Yes, our office, a big part of it is we all help each other, and we're here to help, but it's hard to just pick up the phone and call some agent that you don't really know and expect them to spend 30 minutes helping you on a contract or something. If you've built a relationship with someone, you've shown houses for them through this program, it's going to be much easier to say, hey, do you think you could help me out for a minute? I've got this issue I'm dealing with. So, I hope we're able to help foster some of those relationships with agents in our office that'll help you as you build your business.
There's a lot of seasoned agents that are really excited about having this program in place. I am super excited, which is kind of why we stepped up to say, you know what, we'll help train these newer agents to do this, because I want to get into it. So, okay, so we're going to kind of start from the beginning, run through kind of the process, what to do, what not to do, and all of that. And we're going to start with setting a showing.
Okay.
So, not volunteered to do the
Man, I didn't get to take a head start, so pressure's on.
Okay, so you have two ways that you can set a showing. Do you guys all have the showing time app on your phone? If not, write yourself a note right now. You need to have the showing time app on your phone. That is key. Make it easily accessible to you.
Can we just do a little workshop right now?
You're going to use it all the time.
And
Yeah,
everybody-
download it right now.
Download it right now. If
Oh,
you run
yeah.
into hiccups, you have people here to help you. Download it now.
So if you are like totally brand new, you might not even have a login and password for it yet, but still download it because you will need it. So if you have it, there's that little 3-line hamburger on the left-hand side.
So this is what it looks like in the App Store. This is the little icon.
Is it called Show?
I've always done it just with the RE Colorado app.
Yeah, truth be told, I've not ever used the app to set a showing.
Oh, so this is really good to have it on your phone because if
I'm
you're out and
learning
about and you run,
Where do we do this?
Like literally, I'll be like, don't do this. I'll be driving in my car. I'll have clients texting me like, let's get in and see this one. I'm pulling it up on my phone. Like,
you said it right then and there.
yeah.
So that's happened where you're at the door or you see a for sale sign down the street and they want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So you can just pull it up on the app and schedule a showing right then and there.
I got the
Plus, on occasion, I will write down the showing instructions or the lockbox combo and, miss a number or something like that. So it's easy access if you have the app, because you can go back in and just check for showing instructions.
And sometimes, so there's a Bluetooth speaker with some Bluetooth feature with some of the showings. And so you just have to hit the button on your phone and then it unlocks the black box instead of like typing. Oh, I see.
Okay, so if
Okay.
you're using the app, I'll just go over the app. If you don't have it installed yet or you're not sure how to use it, just kind of write down basic instructions so that you know what to do if you need it, and then practice. Like this, we can talk here all day long and go over all this stuff a million times, but until you put it into practice, it's not going to register with you. So preview homes in the area. If you see a house in your neighborhood go on the market, go look at it. Schedule a showing, set it as a preview, and go and see it. Any areas that you want to be familiar with the market. Your office is in Highlands Ranch. Whether you live in Highlands Ranch or not, you should know what's going on in Highlands Ranch. So set showings for houses that are in the area, take a peek. So there is a three-line.
Real quick, are you guys, are you in Ignite or is that going on now or has it been?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
So-
Some of you have done it.
Right. What I remember, one thing they told us, I imagine they still say this, is go preview 10 houses a week. And I remember I partnered up with somebody and we just basically picked a price range, 400 to 5. Back then, you could actually get a house for 400. But and went kind of from Highlands Ranch up to downtown Denver and just saw what the difference was in that price range as you worked your way up. But absolutely pair up, do it by yourself, whatever, but practice setting these up on your own. And it's not that hard. You just, you got to work your way through it a couple times.
Yeah.
And one other footnote is, I believe we are moving towards that thing called Broker Bay here in the upcoming months. So it's not going to be showing time. So it's good to learn how to do these different ones because each one probably will, you have to think on your feet a little bit, but there'll be training for that and everything, I believe.
Yeah. So in the meantime, if you're using the app, on the top left-hand corner is that 3-line hamburger menu. All you have to do is hit schedule a showing. And then at the top, you can start typing in the address or type in the MLS number. And if it's an active listing, it'll just populate underneath. You just click on the listing that you want to show. Schedule a showing. And then it's going to ask you for your client. Like if you have a database of clients in there that you've been showing houses to, it'll ask you which client you want to show. And then it just has a menu with the time and the date and all of that. You just select all of that from the menu, and then you kind of scroll down, request appointment. So super easy. You're just looking up that particular property and just schedule a showing.
You want me to do it up here now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Option number 2.
Scott, are you sharing this?
Yeah, can you guys on Zoom see that screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So is it, I mean, everyone familiar, you guys have been into Matrix in RE Colorado? Yeah, okay, awesome. Because that's another class.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna, I don't know, do some sort of quick search just to find a listing.
Just find something in Highlands Ranch or whatever.
Okay.
Not a lot to choose from these days.
Okay, so here's an active listing, and there's all kinds of ways you'd end up on one, but your client wants to see this house. Okay, hopefully it's came on 5/7. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so see this little icon that looks just like the app icon you had? That's showing time. So if you click that, it will take you into the showing time. Or you can copy the MLS number and go into showing time. There's all kinds of ways. That's a little shortcut. Then let's just say there are two ways you can do it. If you're gonna go out on Saturday and see 5 houses, you can add to showing cart, set this up, and then go back in and add the others. But we're just gonna schedule this one in particular for right now. This is not my login, so.
Just that little.
Oh, there we go.
Patricia wanted to go see houses today. Oh, look at
Oh,
that.
and they're all blocked off. Of course. All right, we'll try a different list.
Guys, I've never scheduled it through RE Colorado.
Is that right? You always use the app?
So that one, like, they may have offers in, just shut off showing that it's just blocked.
Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately with the market right now, finding a house on a Tuesday that's allowing showings is can be a little challenging. Okay. So the black means it's blocked off. That could be complete, it's already filled up, or they blocked it off. You don't know which it is. But here we see the open windows. This way is nice because you can see everything that's available.
You know what? Let's just go ahead and schedule it. We'll tell Patricia to cancel the showing.
Okay.
I'll tell her.
Okay, so 11 o'clock Saturday looks good. So when you click on it, a couple things you notice here. It gives you the start time and an end time. And this is pretty much the only options you get these days, if that, is a 15-minute window or a 30-minute window. Back in the old days, 6 months ago, you might have up to 2 hours on here, but not 6 months ago, whenever COVID hit, that kind of is when it ended. Because they can't allow, we're not supposed to, actually, I think technically can in some counties now, but most listing agents are not allowing overlapping showings, so they're having to limit the time as much as possible so they can get as many people through in a weekend. Whereas when we're not under those restrictions, you might have a 2-hour window, and what that allows you to do is set up 5 showings and give yourself plenty of wiggle room on the first showing taking a long time or going real quick or whatever. Now you really got to plan this stuff out very strategically. So we do a 30-minute window, and then you can put in here your buyers. So that allows you to kind of keep track of who you're showing. So you have a new buyer, you're setting their first showing. You can put their name in here. You can't, now Jamie maybe will speak better. That's all I ever do. I think there's some things you can do by putting in their email, phone number, and email them itineraries, or I do that myself. Okay. Does anybody utilize that? Tim, have you ever done that?
No, I haven't.
I don't. So
Okay.
also, showing time is not owned by Zillow. So I would prefer not to put you don't have to put your buyer's information in there.
Yeah.
Just a name to track.
It's for your reference to keep track. So you might just put a dummy name that you know or whatever.
So eventually you can take a look at how many so
Right.
oh my God, I showed them 46 houses.
Okay, so now we put that in, we know it's for me, the buyer.
Can you show the appointment type? You could do a preview
Oh, correct, yeah.
in case if you're going on a second showing, which I don't know, those days seem to be long gone too. But usually if you were going on a second showing, you would let the listing agent know that you were there for a second showing because your buyers are already interested in that property so that they get a heads up on that. If you're just going for an agent preview, they know you're not bringing a buyer with them or with you. It's just information for them. So you can set different kinds of appointments. If you're going for an inspection, you can set that appointment just so that they know.
Yeah, usually I find inspection, that sort of stuff, you're usually scheduling more in person with the agent, the listing agent. But then like a lot of times I'll go in and schedule it on here to get the lockbox code again or something like that. And so just so they know. But typically you'd be doing showing. And if you're doing a preview on your own, you do agent previews. And then, do you really want me to do it?
I just texted her. I'm like, hey, we're scheduling an appointment for you. Go ahead and cancel it. Yeah, go ahead. Who cares?
Okay. Okay, so this one, you got the check mark, means it's confirmed. So that means they have it set to just automatically approve an appointment. The other thing you'll get is it'll say your showing has been requested, and it'll have, what does it do there? It has some ... yellow. Yeah. And that means that they have it set where the most likely what's happening is the seller themselves is getting notified and they have to approve it. Like we said, this time in our market, you pretty much tell your seller, hey, this weekend, just go out of town. You're going to have showings. You don't want to deal with that. But it's been on the market a couple months. Showings are a little more sporadic. You want to give your seller a chance to approve it so they know to be out of the house and everything like that. Then you'll get emails through all this. So right now, if I was Patricia, the agent that actually requested this, she just got an email saying your request is confirmed, and it'll have, the details, the access information, the lockbox code, showing instructions. So you have a secondary email with all that. And in your app, you can go in and pull up all that detail as well at any time. If it was pending, if it was awaiting, you get an email saying it's awaiting it, and then you get another email when it's been confirmed. So you know. All right. Anything else in here? Does anyone have any questions about any of that? One thing that didn't pop up on this one, Central Lock, and we'll talk about those when we get to that, is sometimes there'll be a prompt that will say, do you have access to Central Lock? And if you pay for a subscription to that, you can click yes. And then what'll happen is it'll say, use your Central Lock to open the box. If you say no, then it'll give you a longer code than that will show you how to open a Central Lock box. That's the electronic lock boxes that were free for everyone for some period of time, and then last year they ended that free part, so it's a little different.
Does anybody here have a subscription to Central Lock? Okay, so here's another word of advice. Even if you have a subscription to Central Lock, the actual lockbox it uses your Bluetooth with your phone. So if you are going to be in the middle of nowhere, just say that you don't have access to it, even if you do. So that way it'll spit out a day code and you can just manually enter that. If you're counting on Wi-Fi and you're in the middle of nowhere, Elizabeth, and you're supposed to get in and your phone can't connect to the lockbox, you're out of luck. And then that sucks.
Then you get to make a second trip back to Elizabeth once you get a day.
So yeah, even if you have it, sometimes it's just easier to just say that you don't, just so that you can get a day code spit out at you. It's just easier.
I have problems with Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Is it possible to switch on that? Like if you click yes, I've got Central Lock, and then you'd have to reschedule the whole
correct.
thing.
You have to reschedule. You have to cancel the showing and then hope that spot is still available and reschedule it to get another code.
Now you also, another way around that would be you could reach out to the listing agent on the listing and say, hey, I scheduled a showing. I realized I need to get a day code. Could you send me a day code?
Okay.
Or call you. A lot of this too. This is all automated. On every listing, there's a phone number. As long as it's showing time, you have the phone number. you can always call showing time and do all this. So like Brooksy was talking about, you're in the car, you see a sign you want to schedule showing. The app is great because you can pop right on it. The other thing you can do is just call showing time from your car, say, hey, I need to schedule showing on 123 Main Street as soon as possible, and they'll do it, and they'll send you the code or text you the code. So, you know, they have people online to fix any problems like that if you need a one-day code.
Cool.
Question, if you say that you don't have it, but you get out there and you do have Wi-Fi, does the Wi-Fi override the code that you manually have to put in?
No, just use the code that they gave you. Yeah, it's just here.
Yeah. Okay.
Questions on setting up showing? No, good.
Another thing I guess we should mention is not every single listing uses showing time. Occasionally you'll come across one that doesn't have that icon. And so let's go back to that listing here. So I didn't even go down and look, but that icon was there, so I clicked on it. But probably before you click on that icon, it's good to go down to the bottom and read showing information. And that's where you're going to find any details like, this one doesn't list anything. They just opened it up. But, oh, they do have unconfidential information. They should put it in showing too. But showings to begin Friday, May 14th at 10 a.m. and then all these other details. But sometimes they may just have you contact the listing agent, and the listing agent decides to manage the showings themselves, and they'll give you the information.
Kent, what a couple of luxury listings, sometimes you'll see the brokerage needs to be contacted directly to set that up. So you just have to read the showing instructions in the MLS. Okay. So make sure that you're following the showing instructions. So they're gonna spit out the access code for Century Lock or the combo code or whatever it is. Make sure you scroll down a little bit if you're using the app, or read the instructions when they get sent to you via email, because sometimes there's something in there that says where the lockbox is. Like every once in a while, you'll find the lockbox is not sitting on the front door. It's attached to the gas pipe around the left side of the house. So you need to know that rather than you with your client standing there like, you know, I don't know where this is. So read the showing instructions ahead of time because it'll give you information. Sometimes they'll have, instead of spit out showing instruction or like a combo or a code, they'll tell you to use the keypad on the door and how to use that specifically. Sometimes there's a keypad on the doorknob that people will give you that code for. So just read those showing instructions and make sure that you're following them. Showing instructions as far as COVID right now is a little weird. I don't really even know what all the protocols are for specific counties.
See your broker.
Yeah, right. See Debbie.
Don't listen to us.
But if it says in the showing instructions that you need to wear a mask, you need to wear a mask. Sometimes they'll specify that there are children or high-risk people that live there, whatever it is. Make sure that you're following it. Because these days, I would say more people have a Ring doorbell than not, and a lot of people have audio and video capabilities in the house. So if they ask you to do something, please make sure you're doing it, because Debbie hates getting phone calls about it.
And the Ring doorbells, and a lot of times sellers, when they leave to let showings in, they go to their neighbor's house. Their neighbors all know that their house, and they're looking out there. I did one Friday where we were walking around finding the place, and we walked by this guy walking his dog, and he said hi. He was real friendly, and then we went in the house. We saw it. We come out. The same guy's walking his dog, and he says, "Zeus, come here." And my buyer recognized the name Zeus because there was a dog bed and all the stuff around the house said Zeus, and we realized, that's the seller kind of loitering around trying to spying on us. So that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So just always be mindful. If they ask you to do something, do something. Another thing in showing instructions that they'll also note if there's gonna be pets in the house, usually like cats or something like that. And a lot of people are allergic to those. So if you see something, there may be a cat in the house, you may want to mention that to your buyer to make sure that's okay.
Yeah, give them a heads up. Okay, so make sure when you walk up to a door, make sure that so here's the what to bring, right? Print out the full broker page from RE Colorado. And I have a couple of, thank you for letting us set a showing for you.
It was really awkward because I'm online and all of a sudden I see my email. I'm like,
Thank you. So you have different options of stuff to print out, to bring or not to bring. I recommend bringing the full broker page with you.
Y'all know how to print listings?
For a couple of reasons.
Always
Yeah,
show real
while
quick.
you're doing this, yeah. So a couple of reasons. First of all, if you print out the full broker page, you have the listing agent's contact information. On multiple occasions, I have walked in the door and the dog got out of the crate, ate the couch. There's stuff everywhere. I mean, you just never know what you're going to walk into. I've walked into a water heater that had like exploded all over the floor. These people, they need to know that like immediately. So rather than you have to start searching for the listing and find the info, print out the one page. Do one back and front and just bring it with you. It gives you an opportunity to have all the information right in front of you without sitting on your phone the whole time you're walking around with them. So you have everything in front of you. You can make notes. If they ask you a question, you need to do some follow-up research or whatever, you can write notes. So make sure that you have a full sheet and a pen with you when you're showing. Did you find it?
Yeah, so here's, you go, I guess I did it on it. You go, just when you're on a listing, print, and then here are all the different options. So the very first one is full property. That's what we're talking about. That's going to contain confidential information just for brokers. So you don't want to print that for your client, but you definitely want to have it. I have a clipboard that's part of my little kit whenever I do showings. I always put the packet with each showing's full property view. Like Jamie said, it's great to take notes, write down any questions. And I tell my clients, if we see more than 2 places, you're going to get things mixed up. And I'm the same way. I mean, if you go see 4 or 5 or more listings in a day, there's no way you can keep everything straight. So take good notes on there, use the back of the page, whatever, and really point, I like to write down things they said that they liked, they didn't like, questions. They said, I wonder if the HOA includes this or things like that. And just take good notes while you're doing it. And it'll help you so much when you get done and you're like absolutely worn out from driving all over the place, seeing all these houses, and then trying to remember what was what. Then for the client, I like to print this client one page. And I always like to make sure I print it in color. It's just a one page. It doesn't have that confidential information and showing information. Let's see if Patricia is done. No, well, wait. Oh, without. Okay, so you can do a header and you can actually customize this in RE Colorado. Again, that might be for another class, but yes. So see, Patricia does have her set up. Yeah. With your contact information. So every time you print this and you give them to your client, they get that header, know it's branded to you and everything. Okay.
And it's up to you. I mean, if you don't print out the client one, just make sure you have this one. And I would take a look ahead of time, just when you print the full one out, take a look at the important things that are on there. HOA, like how much is it a month? The year, number of beds and baths. These are the things that people are going to ask when you're walking through. So make sure you take a look ahead of time. That's where I write the showing instructions so that I'm not fumbling through my phone every time I walk up to a door. I already know that it's a combo. I know what the combo is, and I know where to find the lockbox. And if there's a specific instruction, like sometimes they'll say to, leave a card or don't leave a card or turn all the lights off when you're done or whatever it is, I kind of write those notes on there so that I know what I need to do for every company. Because once you set multiple showings, you're not going to remember which one told you to, leave the dog free, whatever. So
they always ask us taxes when we were doing the new home. What's the tax?
And that's on that page.
Yep.
So absolutely be as prepared as you can, but also don't feel like overwhelmed that I've got to memorize every detail about this house so that they ask me what year's house bill, I can say, and just, you've got this. The more you do these and get familiar, you know where to look on there. and we'll mention this too, but don't, if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, that's fine. It's much better to say, let me check on that and I'll let you know, than make up something or guess or assume or anything like that. So you can see on here, year bill 2021, taxes, 4,900. So, all these things are right there on the client one page. So like Jamie said, so you can or cannot give this to your clients. It's up to you and what you do. I like to, but then I have some clients that after I notice they basically take it and throw it away. So I don't bother after a while. Some love it. That's how they keep track of the houses. So you just kind of got to work with that. But it has all the basic information on there for the one for the client. All right.
Okay, so that's what you're bringing with you. Where do you think you should park?
Not in the driveway.
Not in the driveway. Not in front of the house either. So you as the broker should either pull ahead to the next house and hoof it, or kind of circle around, park in that house across the street. If your buyer chooses to park in the driveway or in front of the house, great. But just park elsewhere so that they don't have a car blocking, the house, and they get to get an idea of the curb appeal of the home. If you're parking in the driveway, sometimes you're covering up cracks or who knows what. So park elsewhere. And I know some of these things sound so trivial, but some of these little details are kind of important. Lock boxes. So we'll practice with these, but practice opening lock boxes by setting preview homes, and you'll get much better at it. But your first handful is, needs a little work. Okay, so the next section is kind of big. What to say and what not to say. So
real quick on lock boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go show 5 homes. You've got emails from the 5 confirmed showings in your inbox with the codes. Do you write those on your page for those houses?
I do.
Okay, that's what I do as well. So if I'm going to show 5 homes, I've got that packet, the 2 or 3 page full listing for each one. I put them in the order we're going, staple together. And then I take those emails and I write the code. I don't write it. I try to write it kind of inconspicuously, just so that if for some reason I lost that page, it's not obvious that's what it is, but in the same place so I know where it is. Because if you're trying to hold a screen door open and deal with this lock and be looking at your phone that keeps going off because you don't touch it for 5 seconds and everything, it makes it so hard. But if you write down, 1976, and now you know what to put in or whatever, it makes it so much easier. So I didn't know if some people might say you shouldn't write it down in case.
So I've heard if you do have the sheets, throw them in the shredder, because you now have the address and the lockbox code. So if you show it and you know that they're not interested, shred it. I tend to keep all of them for buyers until they go under contract on something else, and then I throw them all away and shred them all, because you never know. People change their minds, right? So they see a bunch of houses, they say, oh, I don't like that one, whatever, and then sometimes they come back to it. So I kind of hang on to them until I know that they're not gonna use any of those houses and then I shred them all. So that way you're shredding the lockbox codes for those.
But of these, only the electronic lockbox changes codes during the time that lockbox is on. So if that code gets out, anyone can get in. So of course y'all learned in school learning, never share that code with your client or
So what to say and what not to say. Keep in mind that you could be recorded at any and all times when you're on that property, whether it's indoors, outdoors, at the front door, in the driveway, whatever. So just keep that in mind. Mind your P's and Q's, what you say. So keep your opinions to yourself, right? So I have to say this to myself all the time. This is not my house and it's not my money. Because what you might want and value in a home might be completely different from what someone else might want and value in a home. Some people are lot sensitive. Some people that move from really busy areas, being next to a highway doesn't faze them. You might not like it, but that's not your decision to make. So it is not your house and it is not your money. And make sure that you say that to yourself all the time. Because the worst thing you could do is skew someone else's opinion of a house And that's not even your buyer. That's somebody else's buyer that you're taking out. So
What I used to say is, it doesn't matter if you sell fresh. So you say it doesn't matter what I like, that is what you like.
absolutely, yeah. You know, totally their opinion, and different people value different things. So just remember that you are showing someone else's client. And I specified here, less is more. Like, don't overstep your bounds, or, you know, comment on everything in the house, things that you like or you find interesting or attractive, or what your opinion is of something that might be work, might not be their opinion of something. That might be like the best thing that they've ever seen. So keep your opinions to yourself. You know, you're basically stating the facts. You walk in the door, hey, this house was built in number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. Share the basics, the statistics, the facts, and keep opinions out of it.
One thing and again, we're sort of talking, there's two directions here. When it's just as general showing ideas, when it's your buyers, and then also for this showing assistant program. And you'll learn as it's your buyers a little more, you know, you can be a little more talkative and things because it's your client. You can handle them how you want. When you're showing it for someone else, like Jamie said, you really want to stick to facts, things like that, and probably less is more as much as you can. One thing I do, I like to kind of ask questions a lot of times. So I don't point out, man, that's some really old tile countertops in the kitchen or something, but I'll say, well, what do you think of the tile countertops? And just kind of is a way to sort of gently point something out, especially on my calls, not as much when I'm showing someone else, but kind of get a feel for them. We're like, oh, they're kind of nice. I don't mind them or something. Now I know, okay, they're not where some people are like, oh, those are awful. I would never want tile in the kitchen. Well, now I know the next house, if it's got tile countertops, it's got tile countertops or something.
Yeah. So just keep in mind, like, if you're acting as a showing assistant, chances are, I mean, maybe if you show them a handful of homes, but those first couple homes, you don't know them or what they want, or, you know, what their thoughts are on things. So just keep your opinions to yourself and just let them make the decisions on what they do and don't like. So the reason you print out the full MLS sheet is so that you have the broker remarks. So in the broker remarks, they might say, hey, carpet is being replaced next week, you know, or, you know, whatever, information on offers that are due in at a certain time. Make sure that you share that information. You know, one of your fiduciary duties is to share the information that you know about the property. And if you see something in the broker remarks, it's your obligation as the buyer's agent's proxy to share whatever it is that you know. So pull that info out of the broker remarks and make sure that you share that with them. You know, if it says, hey, offers due in Sunday at 5 p.m., just let them know so they have a heads up as far as what that timeline looks like for them. But a lot of times there's different information in there about what's been replaced, or, you know, anything being sold as is, not looking at inspection, whatever it is, just make sure that you share that information with them.
Question.
Yeah.
For the brokers, like when you were just saying offers due in,
yep.
I recognize that doesn't count right now because they're going so fast, but if things were on the table for 14, 21 days, does that get updated all the time? Like if it's due in Sunday and then it's Monday, still gonna say yesterday's date?
Depends on the listing agent. And you have to kind of take everything with a grain of salt these days, because even the best laid plans, like even these days, they'll put broker remarks, hey, offers due in Sunday at 5 o'clock, acceptance deadline Monday at 3, and then you kind of go through the contract the Friday before all of that, because they got an offer, they just couldn't refuse. So tell them that that's the plan. If they're really serious about the house and you think, oh my gosh, this is the one, and they're going to want to write an offer, then it's your responsibility to let their agent know what's going on. Hey, they really love it. This is what it says in the remarks, and then find out what the plan is from the agent.
So, like for this one in particular, let's say they're saying it'll be available through this Sunday, and then they want offers in by Monday at 8 o'clock p.m. If it's next Wednesday and this is still on the market, then maybe they didn't get the offers they were looking for. if I was the listing agent and that happened, I would go in and edit that remark and just, you probably wouldn't be putting deadlines after that. Now it's just, show it when you're available. So that's typically what you'll see, but sometimes you'll see that where it's after the fact and it still says that. If someone says, I want to see this house and it's Monday and you pull that up, well, now I better call the listing agent and see if we can still get in and see it and get an offer, how things are working. That's
Oh, so just, that makes sense to pick up a call to.
Yeah.
Or just shoot them a fast text or whatever, just say, hey, this house just popped up on our radar. Do you already have offers? Just kind of see where things are.
Should you put in there though, as far as like they'll accept offers, whatever, the seller reserves right to accept?
That's a whole other class.
There's a lot of different opinions.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's on the listing agent. That's the listing agent's decision based on the plans of their sellers. So
know that whether they say that or not, there's nothing that prohibits them from doing that. So if they're saying if you have a buyer that really likes this house, you want to get in there and just basically keep them apprised and contact the listing agent as soon as you know there's a lot of interest.
okay. So another thing, like while you're walking through, don't make any assumptions on anything. If you're uncertain, it is totally fine to say, let me check with, either their agent or the listing agent and get back to them. Because they'll ask a lot of questions. And the more you know about a particular area or the neighborhood or whatever, the more likely you are to already have some answers for them. But if you're in the dark, don't guess.
And especially with the showing assistant program, I also did showings for Mark Bauer when I started. He said, if they ask you anything about, should I, any question that isn't just a factual question, the answer, say, that's a Mark question. We'll get back into that. That's, you kind of have to think of that. You don't want to be providing any information that could possibly be wrong, could possibly sway their opinion on it. That's really their agents thinking.
To just redirect it back to their own agent. So what to look for while you're out on a listing. So, it's your job to share the facts, not your opinions, right? But keep, the one thing that I do share is it's my responsibility to keep resale in mind. So I tend to point things out to people that would be of importance to them. If they are under a cell tower, we're looking at a house that's under a cell tower or it backs to 470. They might not mind the noise or they might not mind, the towers or whatever, but I would say to them, just to keep in mind, this could affect resale because there are a lot of people that are very lot sensitive. So I do point things like that out, but from the perspective of a potential resale down the line. It's just something for them to keep in mind. Like I said, it might not bother them at all, but they just need to know that it might impact their sale down the line.
And that's important right now because that may be hard to understand because everything is selling. Whether it's under a cell tower or backs to a highway, right? There are so many people buying and so few listings. But when that changes, those things become very important. And that house that's back, it's a tough market. That house back into the highway may sit on the market for a long time. So it's important to educate them on that.
And if they still don't care, that's okay because it's not your house and it's not your money. So they can make an offer or do whatever. They just need to be aware of those things. And I think it's important, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little, but if they happen to love a house and notice something that could potentially affect a resale, that's your responsibility to share that with their agent when you provide them with feedback on how that showing went. So you know what, they absolutely fell in love with that house. And it's a great house and it might be a good fit, but I just want you to know, because they might not be able to see from the pictures or from the map necessarily. A lot of times if you look at the maps, it looks like, a green belt behind the house, but you have those huge, high voltage, high tension wires running through the yard. They might not know that. So make sure that you provide that feedback to the agent. Let's see. So things that affect resale. So any glaring inspection concerns, and you want to know this so that you can share this with the buyer while you're walking them through. And you also want to share this if they're interested in the house, you're going to want to let that agent, their agent, know, because when they go, you know, if they go under contract on the house and they have an inspection, well, here's a couple of things that were kind of glaring when we saw the property. You want to just make sure that the agent that hired you to do the showing is aware of what's going on. So, you know, if you pull up and there's a tree right next to the house, it's leaning on the gutters and the roots are growing under the shingles, they need to know that. So anything regarding the roof, and you know, if it's a newer roof, they'll say that in the broker remarks or the public remarks. But if you drive up to a house and the shingles are all curled, or you have a concrete tile that's got cracks all over the place, and you need to make a note of that. And that's why you have your pen and your paper, right? So make a note of that, and point something like that out to the buyer. Because that's something they need to be aware of, that it's something if they love that house and they decide to write an offer and they go under contract, that's something that inspector needs to pay particular attention to.
So Jamie, let's say I'm a buyer and you're showing me a house for William. He hired you to be his showing assistant.
I would never work for him. I'm just kidding. I hope he's watching.
Okay, so I walk up to this house and I'm like, I really like this house. It's got all this, and we go in the basement and you see some cracks. How, like, just role play that a little so that it kind of like, how are you saying that to me?
So I would point out, you know, the cracks that are in the walls around in the basement, that's where the foundation is. That's a different concrete pour than the flooring is. So you might see cracks of different sizes in the flooring and in the foundation, and that's something that, you know, if it's a concern, you would want to point that out to your inspector, and you might want to specifically get an inspector who is a structural engineer, especially if there's cracks in the foundation, because there are different kinds of cracks. There are vertical cracks and there are horizontal cracks, and I believe horizontal cracks are a little worse off than the verticals.
So should I not be looking at this house? Is that what you're telling me? This scares me.
And it's definitely a conversation that you should have with William. And if you decide to go under contract with it, definitely I would recommend that you pull in an inspector who specializes in structural engineering.
Okay.
But it's definitely something to keep in mind because structural repairs can be massive.
I don't want to look at this house anymore. Let's go to the next one. You scared me off. That one little crack. Now I don't even want.
Well, and there's different kinds of crack. Like if you see a crack in the wall that's a crack, that is a problem. Yeah. But you'll probably also notice other things wrong with the house. It's not going to just be that crack. You'll probably notice other things. But these are things that you'll notice as you go through more houses and when you're at inspections with your clients. But you just would want to point out that that is a concern, that, you know, it might be something that the seller is willing to make repairs on, who knows, but it's definitely something you want to have looked at during the inspection process.
Well, let's say you're new and you hadn't been through all those inspections to understand the difference between vertical cracks and horizontal cracks and everything. And there's some cracks on the wall in the basement, and the buyer's asking you about them. So
I would take some pictures and I would send that to the buyer's agent and just say, they love this house, they're thinking about making an offer, but I wanted to send you some pictures because they do have some concerns in the basement.
Okay. And just tell the buyer they're you know, that's an important issue to know, that structural problems can be expensive to fix. This may or may not be a serious issue.
Because I'm not an inspector.
Because I'm not an inspector.
And I'm not a structural engineer.
And some are serious, some aren't. So I'm taking some pictures and sending them to William, and you know, just keep that in mind. And you can always get a structural inspector to look at it. Okay.
And a lot of times, if you go into a house that has cracks, they know, like their listing agent probably flagged that well before you walked in that door. So there may be a structural engineering report. That's also something that you could say, you know, that is definitely a concern of mine. We can reach out to the listing agent and find out if there's a structural engineering report, or, you know, just get some more information. Because because there might be something in the broker remarks regarding that if they've had it checked out before. Because a listing agent walking through, if you noticed it, they probably noticed it too and had it correct. And that's something they would disclose to you. So, let's see. So yeah, I mean the roof cracks in the foundation. You know, people always ask, well, how old's the water heater? Sometimes you could tell. Sometimes there's stickers on it. You know, sometimes it was serviced. It's not really your job to know the age of every utility that's in the house. So, you know, you can say, wow, this looks newer, or, you know, it might be original. Your inspector would be able to tell by the serial number how old it is and just collect to the inspector rather than guess or whatever. Sometimes it'll say in the public remarks, you know, new water heater, new blah, 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 whatever. So just keep an eye and point those things out if they do have questions. Furnace AC, all of that.
And a lot of times if it's a something they're really interested in, sometimes you can get that from the listing agent pretty quickly.
Yeah.
With a quick question, hey, do you happen to know the age of the furnace AC?
Yeah. And since you printed out the full MLS sheet, you have broker's info right there. You can shoot the fast text while you're here. Hey, at the showing, you know, tell me whatever. But there's like little things that people they're fascinated by in basements, especially. People get hooked on the age of the furnace. They want to know what a sump pump is and what a radon mitigation system looks like. So my recommendation is to pay attention to those things when you go on inspection with your buyers, because you'll learn so much. And that information you can then share to your buyers. And that's how you just get really good at your job. Like, you know, people always, they see the thing in the floor and they're like, what is that? Like, well, it's either a sump pump or a sump pit or whatever. And you can kind of explain what that is. Put my flashlight on and look down there and you can say, oh, well, it's whatever. So don't speak to those things unless you've had the experience with them. But once you learn that stuff, sharing that information, again, you're just speaking the facts. But it just proves that you know what you're talking about. And it's confidence building too. So.
Yeah, inspections. I've learned so much attending inspections over the years on houses that, yeah, you're with a buyer and they ask about something and I'll say, oh, I've heard my inspector say this 10 times. I can tell you about this. You sound so knowledgeable, even though I don't know anything beyond that one statement that the inspector made.
Doesn't matter. Radon mitigation systems. Like people see the, you know, big piping and the little meter thing and they start asking questions about it. So, you know, just learn some things about those items from inspectors. And, you know, there are agents in here, if you wanted to tag along on an inspection, they probably wouldn't mind. You just have to put it out there. So, you know, if you were a showing agent for a particular client and they already know you and they go under contract, ask that agent, could I tag along on your inspection or put it on Facebook?
That's a great idea.
Hey, I would love an opportunity to shadow an inspection. I mean, to be honest, I've heard a lot of people say, hey, can I shadow a listing presentation or something? Well, when you're meeting a client for the first time, it's a little awkward and a little hard to have somebody shadow, but something like an inspection is not really a big deal.
Especially if you showed the house.
Yeah.
That you already know them. I'd do that all day.
Yeah.
So as a buyer's agent, I'd certainly let you come on the inspection. So yeah, that's where going back to the beginning, the relationship side of it, just by this program, I think you'll get a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. So feedback. Do you guys have any questions like so far?
Does that, I mean, the reason I want to do that little role play part is there's, as you gain experience, your responses to things are going to change as you build knowledge and things like that. Absolutely don't feel like you need to have that knowledge to show a house. And yeah. Jamie's shown many, many houses and many, many inspections and seen lots of structural things. If you don't know, you don't know. No one's expecting you to be able to differentiate between types of cracks and things like that. But just understand how to respond to those things. Hey, there's some cracking that looks like it could be a problem, or whatever, that this floor, we'll talk about some of those things. But just the more you start learning things that, I don't even want to say red flags. You don't want to scare them. You don't want to just say, whoa, this is a big deal. We might not even want to keep looking at this house because there's a crack. But put it in their mind, hey, this is something we just need to be concerned about. I sent some pictures over to your agent and he'll follow up on it.
Yeah. And that's important to provide that feedback to the agent that hired you to show the house. Like, you want to make sure that you did a thorough enough job that you can share information that you learned on that house, what your buyer or their buyer is or isn't interested in, or, you know, if they love it, here are some concerns that I have, so just make sure that they keep that in the back of their minds. So that moves forward like to feedback. So there's two different kinds of feedback that as a showing agent you would be responsible for. One is to provide feedback to the listing agent on the house that you actually showed, because once you set the showing, you're going to get an automated email that says, hey, we want your feedback from the listing agent. So make sure that you do that, because when you're a listing agent, you're going to want that feedback. So I think this is really important for a couple of reasons. This is a really hard market, and I think that building rapport and showing that you would be someone really great to work with right out of the gate is really important. Now, keep in mind, this is not your client per se, but because you set the showing, you're going to get the feedback. So it
comes through that showing time. So when you set that showing, I told you got an email that shows that it was confirmed. Your app's going to have it. As soon as that window of time, if it was 1 to 1:30, at 1:30 on the dot, you're going to feel your phone buzz and you have an email that says showing feedback requested from that. It's going to say from the agent, but it's from showing time, and it's on your app. So sorry.
Yeah. So, you know, they'll ask you for information on that listing, and I always start out, thank you so much for letting us see this home. Just be nice, be pleasant. Thank you so much for letting us see this home. If they allowed you to have a 30-minute showing window instead of a 15-minute showing window, I give them kudos. Thank you so much. We really appreciated having a 30-minute showing window. So you're already, like, your first 2 sentences of feedback are already coming from gratitude, and it just speaks to you as an agent in general. And if you're the buyer's agent that hired you to show that house, if they submit an offer, you can make that connection in that feedback as well. So, you know, thank you so much for letting us see this home. We really appreciated the 30-minute showing window. The buyer loved the location and the neighborhood. You know, if there's some concern, you could write that. Be very diplomatic about everything, because a lot of times the listing agent will have that showing feedback go directly to the seller. So, you know, watch what you say. But, you know, at the very end, you know, if you're saying all these positive things and the buyer really did love that house, you can say something along the lines of, if an offer is submitted, it will come from my partner, William Kretzer, so that they can kind of connect you. You've already built a little rapport, kind of started out on the right foot, and you've opened the door for the agent to kind of come in and submit an offer, and you're kind of already on the right foot. I think right now, relationships with other agents is huge. So you're kind of setting the right tone for the agent that hired you if they decide to submit an offer. It just looks good that you were gracious and thankful, and you actually filled out the feedback. Not a lot of people do. But down the line, for you personally, if you've always submitted, you know, feedback, and you've always responded when agent gets your phone, or when somebody calls you or reaches out or whatever, down the line, you know, if you're the listing agent and you get offers, or vice versa, somebody else is the listing agent, you submit an offer for your client, they'll be like, oh, I remember that agent, because you recognize names in this business all the time, especially if you do a lot of business in certain areas. You're going to run into the same agents on a regular basis. So make sure that you're completing the feedback, not only for yourself, but as a representative of that buyer's agent, and kind of make that connection and start off the whole thing on the right foot.
Now, when you get that feedback request, a lot of times it will have a series of questions, multiple choice questions, as well as sort of an open, you know, other, what you think of it, or something like that. So that free form is where, you know, all the stuff Jamie's talking about. I'll say what I do on the multiple choice. I'm curious to see what you do. A lot of times the questions are, what did you think of this listing? It'll be 1 to 5. What did you think of the price of this listing? about right, way too low, way too high, and some 5 choices within that. Where would you rate this listing? I don't know. They're very strange. And my listings probably have the same thing because it's an automated thing and you can customize it. I don't know that I've ever. Okay. And I think I actually took those off. To be honest, I don't know. When I get those, I usually put, I don't know, what did you think of this listing? And I'll put 4 or 5 or something. I don't really, and then I skip the others. I do not like to tell them how they're priced unless it's something unless I really feel like there's something they need to know about it, but I usually just skip that. I tell them, thanks for the showing. I'm going to start saying, we really appreciate the 30-minute showing window. That's a great idea. And then I say exactly how Jamie did. I start out with my buyer really liked this, this, and this. And if they're going to make an offer, I go crazy. I say, they love this. They love I put all kinds of stuff because that's your first chance to. Well, no, just yeah, exactly. But, just all the things they love about the house. Yeah. And we will be submitting an offer soon.
It'll come from my teammate, William Kretzer.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm thinking when I'm making the buyer, what's my buyer? Yes, I'm showing for someone else. But then if they're not interested, I'll say, however, they were, I'll try to explain why they're not interested in very general terms. I don't get real crazy specific. I did, like the other day I had one where we were looking for 3 bedrooms and it was listed as 3 bedrooms, and you go in the basement and there's a room that has one of those egress things, but the egress was covered by a permanent deck. So that is not a bedroom. So I said, my buyer's looking for a 3-bedroom. However, the 3rd bedroom without egress isn't going to work for them or something to kind of subtly say, you shouldn't be calling that bedroom. But anyway, I think I'm curious how you handle those multiple choice questions.
So I'll usually answer the one that's, what did you think of the house or the showing or whatever the rating from 1 to 5. I never answer the one about price, because unless you've actually done the research, pulled the comps, and done that for the entire neighborhood, I don't know how that house is priced. I know it was priced where my buyer is still interested in looking. That's about all I know. So I don't answer those questions. And you know what? Just for the record, take everything that we're saying with a grain of salt, because Scott and I do business one way. Other agents might do business another way. You guys are going to find things that work or don't work for you. So, everybody kind of handles things a little differently. We're just kind of here to share our experience. So, maybe it's in a neighborhood that you live and that it's a great price. So you might be comfortable filling that out. For the most part, I know. So, but as a listing agent, I'm just going to get any feedback. So whatever you can provide is good. Let's see. So, you're building rapport, thanking them, keep it simple. Mention the buyer's agent's name so they can make that connection. Because if they get an offer from an agent, the buyer's agent, right, and that agent never set a showing, they might think it's a sight unseen offer. So just make sure you make that connection for them. Connect those dots ahead of time so that they know that buyer did see that house. It was just with a showing assistant.
Because when you're a listing agent and you get feedback from several agents, and a couple of them said, we're going to keep looking, and then you get one that says we loved it, we're going to be preparing an offer, and then you get an offer, and you give it to your seller, but there's this other agent that, I can't believe we don't have the offer because they couldn't stop writing how great their buyer loved the house. You want to make sure they understand for sure.
Connect those dots for them. Let's see. So keep your reputation and the buyer's agent's reputation in mind when you're submitting feedback. Be very diplomatic, kind, and easygoing with your responses, not too harsh, and just be very politically correct whenever you write. And then the other kind of feedback that you really are required to provide is your feedback on how that showing went and what that buyer's thought process is for the agent that you showed that house for. So it's then your responsibility when you get in the car after you've seen all those showings, give a call and just say, hey, Scott, I showed those 4 houses today. You know, the one that's in their search portal is, you know, 123 Main Street. They actually love that. And it would probably be a great fit for them. You know, I did have a couple of concerns, you know, or send them a text and share the pictures or whatever it was. Just make sure that you're giving them feedback so they know what conversations to then have with their buyers. So you're kind of passing the reins back to them. They'll follow up with the client, kind of see what that looks like, and if they want to write an offer. It's not your position to, you know, get in too far in the weeds with all of that. But you do need to let them go where they are. I mean, if you showed 4 houses and they were like, we don't like any of them, we're just going to keep looking, you need to let the agent know that so that they don't, you know, spend the next couple of hours trying to get a hold of the buyer, circling around whether or not they need to submit an offer or any of that. So. Any questions on feedback?
I'm assuming that the realtor that we're showing the houses for has pulled all the houses that we're going to show them. That's not up to us, correct?
So that can kind of be set up a couple of different ways. Usually they'll just send you a list and, you know, hey, these are the houses that, you know, they need to see, or send you addresses or MLS numbers or whatever it is, and then you kind of go from there and set that up. I mean, there are different levels of showing assistance. Like, you know, at some point, if you're a showing assistant, you might just be opening a couple of doors, and we'll talk about this when we get to that contract on the back. But it might just be a couple of doors. But maybe it gets to be a little bit further where you're spending more time with that particular buyer, showing them more than one weekend. That structure might be different. Because you could get copied on their search portal, you know, because they're getting emails from their agent, and they're choosing the houses out of that they want to go see. So you could potentially get copied on that and kind of leave the agent out of that, and you communicate directly. But technically, in the beginning, it's not your client. So they'll just get that info and just shoot it to you, and you're just opening doors.
You might have a scenario where maybe you're going to go show 2 houses to a client of mine or something, and that morning you made connection with them and set up a time we're going to meet at noon, and maybe that morning they text you and say, hey, this new one hit the portal. Do you think we could see it too? And maybe you can't get a hold of me or something, and you show another house to them. That I would definitely make that a very high priority point to get back with me. That hey, we also saw 456 Main Street, and they liked it, or whatever. But typically, it'd be the agent hiring you or working with you is going to provide the houses and stuff like that.
But it's always going to be like Scott's going to send me the houses, and then I set it up in showing time to the schedule. You're not going to set it up, and then
I would say for the most part, I've actually had a situation where I had something come up and I just couldn't go.
Yeah.
So I called an agent and said, you know what? I already have these 2 showings scheduled. I cannot make it. Is there any way you can show them for me? And then I'm just forwarding them the email with the showing instructions. And then they just kind of take it from there. So that's already been scheduled. In which case I would get the feedback on, the feedback request on it as well. And I can't really provide much because I didn't actually see it. So that's when I'll pick the agent's brain. But for the most part, they'll just send you the info and you would just run with it and set it up. Kind of depends on the agent.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on their level of control in the situation. I mean, they might want to set it up, but they might want to get the feedback, and they might want to have the contact with the listing agent, or they might just say, "Hey, you know what? Just go."
And the scenario, right? I mean, the scenario might be they've got family in town and really didn't want to leave to go show these houses, but they're sitting at home and very available to start writing offers right away, and they, that's probably when you have set up the agreement, something to talk about is, what's the time?
Yeah.
Whereas, a few weeks ago, I helped Jamie out because she had 3 buyers looking at houses the same day. And one of them was very interested in one of the houses. So she had me reach out to the listing agent and start getting some of the information. But typically, it just depends on the circumstances and everything. So you'll want to work that out with the agent, exactly what their expectation is on providing feedback, what the scenario is in this market. On a weekend, it may be time is of the essence. You see a house, you're like, someone needs to get going on it right away. Possibly.
Yep. Any questions on feedback? Okay, so just some tips for showings. So you should have a couple of things in your car. I keep a laser measure and a tape measure, and you never know, especially for inspections, like you're gonna have 3 hours. Even as a showing assistant, if you're covering an inspection, you're gonna be there for 3 hours. That buyer might want to decide where they're putting furniture or measure for window treatment. So keep a realtor box in your car or something. So laser measure, tape measure, masks, Band-Aids, you never know. Just keep stuff in your car, extra water bottles, you just never know what you're gonna need. I keep marbles in my car. I have been in houses that you walk in and you're like, oh my God, am I dizzy? Like this floor doesn't even feel level. And I'll drop a marble, boom, I'm like, ooh, we have a bug. So, just little things like that, just to keep in your car, just in case they have questions or whatever.
Those laser measures, an example where I use it quite a bit is you go in 2 houses, one's furnished, someone still lives there, and one's vacant. And when it's vacant, the rooms look so much smaller. Have you guys noticed that? And the buyers will be like, oh, these bedrooms just aren't big enough. And I'll say, well, let's do this. And I'll show them, look, it's 11 feet across or something. And then we'll be in another house and it's got a bed. This one feels so much bigger. I'll measure it 11 feet across or, something like that. Or they've got a long truck and they're worried about if it'll fit in the garage. And it's so quick and easy to be able to measure that. It's a great tool to have, as well as the internet.
Back when we had hour showings, we had more than enough time to do stuff like that. Now you've got a 15-minute window to get in and out. Throw water bottles in your car just in case. If they have kids, throw some snacks in your car just in case. Just to pacify, even if you're not in the same car, even if you're in another car, have, a bottle of water or juice box or something, just keep that stuff in your car. Because know the buyers and, they might need something. It's much easier for you to hand them, a pack of food snacks and have to make a pit stop. So just try to think of the buyers too.
That's one thing we didn't talk about is the car situation.
Oh, yeah.
I would say COVID's made it kind of easy. You just pretty much stay in your own cars. I mean, if you choose to carpool with somebody, you can, but most people these days are wanting to stay in their own car anyway. So usually you'll probably meet them at the first house. And if you're going to multiple houses, then, you want to just ask them, make sure they have the address, say, you're welcome to follow me if you like, but a lot of times they'll do their own Google map and just follow you along.
If we get split, so just make sure they have the address to the next house. Like I usually, when we walk out, just say, hey, next one we're going to, and make sure they put it in their phone so they know where they're going.
Yeah, and give them time to make, just be thinking of them that if you put a packet together of the client one pages, say, okay, the next one, and like confirm, everyone knows where you're going in case you get split up.
Yeah. And keep in mind, if you are going to see 6 and 7 houses, they might need a pit stop. So you can say, you know what, we can just take a break for a little bit in between these 2 showings. We've got a little extra time. If you're scheduling that many showings, you might want to allot a little break in there somewhere. Let them run to a grocery store, do a drive-through, or stop at the bathroom, or whatever.
You are so smart. I'm so glad I took this class. I never think to do that, and then I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it through all this.
Another thing, like shoes. So this sounds so trivial, but try to wear shoes that are easy to take off and easy to put on, and suggest that to the buyers. They will be so grateful to you when you say, you have slip-ons, put them on. Or if you're going on a construction site or you're going to be out on land, tell them to put boots in their car. Because if they ruin a pair of heels on a construction site, they're going to be mad. But if you say, hey, throw your snow boots in your car in case we land, wherever, it'll just show that you're thinking of that.
When you do a walk, first time you have a new build contract, when you do your walkthroughs each time, that's exactly what Jake is talking about. Because they don't landscape usually until after they've moved in, and it's all dirt. And if it's rained anytime within the last week or two, that is the worst mud that exists. So,
A little tip. Okay. So on here, we also listed other opportunities. So just showing houses, I mean, that in itself is a huge opportunity for you guys. But, you know, put it out there that you can go to an inspection. Like, you know, if I'm out with buyers or I'm out with clients or I've got something going on, I don't know that I can sit for 3 hours at an inspection. So, you know, to have somebody to go and do that, you know, you can always throw that out there as an option, something that you can do. You know, to meet an appraiser, to go and do whatever work needs to be done. You know, even picking up or dropping off lock boxes or a sign. I mean, this is just about getting the experience and building the relationships with other agents. So any of those things. And then, you know, once you start, you're able to prove yourself with a couple of agents, then you're their go-to people. You know, they know that you're reliable and you're going to show up on time. But they'll know that you're going to do those things. So that just can result in like a long-term relationship with another agent, which can be huge for your business. So.
And that's an opportunity like where we're talking about to sit in on an inspection. You know, as you build, shoot, if you go show buyers houses and you know they went under contract on one, be in that agent's ear, like, hey, if you need any help with inspections or you know, anything with them, let me know. I'm happy to help. And even if you're going to be there, I'd love to just shadow the inspection because you learn so much. Just even one inspection, you'll learn so much to have a lot more knowledge as you are showing buyers houses.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
It's very helpful.
It's all very helpful.
Now the fun part, the agreement, how you get paid.
When we talked to Debbie about what do we need to provide during this class, it's all the information that we just gave. But from her perspective, every once in a while, someone will not get paid, or there was no written agreement, or there was really no discussion about, you know, compensation or time or whatever. So she asked that we put together some kind of a contract. You don't necessarily have to use this particular form, but just realize that the information that's in here will help protect you in case there's some sort of confusion or lack of communication with the agents that hire you. So, you know, make sure that you have it in writing, either in an email or you can use this form. Scott and I were talking earlier, I think we're going to have either something on Facebook, add it to the files so that these forms will be available. And then we also have expectations for the agents that hire you because they have to take things into consideration when making these arrangements with you as well. So make sure that, you know, the names are here so you know who's doing the showings or whatever, the dates that you are going to be doing those showings, payment amount. Okay, so we're going to talk, like, just like commission, everything is negotiable. So you might have some agents that are going to say, hey, I pay $25 or I pay $35 or I pay $100, like, lucky you. So make sure that you know what that payment amount is, and are they paying you that by the door, like per house that you show, or is it per hour of your time, or how that looks? I wouldn't just say, oh, it's just $25 because you don't know what that means. Like, is that per door, per hour, whatever. So just make sure that you're really clear about those things. That's kind of why we came up with this form. Debbie wants to make sure that you guys are covered as showing assistants and that there is no confusion or dispute because, you know, you just throw a dollar amount without specifying what that 25 or 35 or 50, whatever it means, then it's just subject to interpretation, which is never good. And just remember, everything's negotiable. So, you know, you might have a number in your head and they might have a number in their head, and you've got to come to some kind of agreement. I mean, some people will say, hey, I you know, we'll pay $25 more, period. I mean, and you can take it or leave it. Or they might say, well, what do you charge? And you should just give that a thought. But like any commission or any payment in real estate, it's all negotiable.
All negotiable. And recognize that it's, you know, I mean, you do what you want on all this, but there's more to it than just the money, I would hope, in the experience you're going to gain, the relationship you're build. You know, think about, do I want to I'd like, I was hoping to get $30 a door and they're only offering 25. Is it, it might be worth it to you. It might not be. And keep in mind that what you may, before you agree on those things with them, you might want to clarify where the houses are going to be in relation to where you're coming from, where you live. Is it, if you live in Castle Rock and I ask if you can show a home in Parker and Castle Rock on Saturday afternoon, you might say, yeah, that's not too, those are both pretty close. If you live in Castle Rock and I ask if you can show a home in Boulder and Longmont on Saturday afternoon, you have a different price in mind for what would be a fair compensation, if you even want to do that, right? So you make, you can, again, it's all negotiable, but you want to make sure it's a fair trade-off for your time and what you're getting. And we've asked that the buyer's agents also keep that in mind and make sure that they're being fair with how they do this.
Yeah, because that's huge. I mean, it has to be worth your time and energy as well. So also make sure that you know what the payment method is. Are they just going to Venmo you money? Are they going to cut you a check? How is that actually going to happen? And then the timeline. Yeah, cash, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Buy you lunch.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's cocktails for the next year. Who knows? I mean, whatever that looks like, just make sure you know what you're getting involved in. And then the timeline. So, it's funny. I don't know if you guys are on Facebook on Lab Coat Agents. It's kind of like next door for real estate. Gossipy and kind of petty and stuff. But every once in a while, there's an interesting post or whatever. And there was a woman who she was just losing it because she showed a house for another agent and like 24 hours had passed and she didn't get paid. And I was like, oh my God, it usually takes me days to get my act together and, pay my showing assistant. So that timeline there is really important. Set the expectation. Know, are you going to get paid before you leave? I mean, maybe they'll pay you up front if it's a certain amount of houses and it's all in one town. Maybe they'll pay you up front. Maybe they're going to pay you within 3 days, within 5 days, within a week, whatever that is. Just make sure that you have clarity around that. Agents might say, hey, I'll pay you at closing, because then they're not coming out of pocket on their end. What I'm going to caution you as showing assistants very strongly against. If you say it's okay, you show 6 houses and you say they're going to pay you at closing, what if that buyer never buys? Or they spend the next, 6 months trying to get under contract and they don't get to the closing table anytime soon. So I would caution you against agreeing to get paid at the closing table because you just never know. It's kind of a big variable.
On the flip side of that, I would say perhaps there's an agreement that you get a percentage of the commission, and maybe that's more appropriate at closing. And I'm gonna have you do all the showings for this buyer, and you get X amount of the commission, but you're rolling the dice a little because if they don't end up finding a house, you don't get it.
And so, that becomes a gray area between are you a showing assistant or are you a buyer's agent? And that's a little bit gray. So when you're starting out and you're just opening a handful of doors, my suggestion, while everything is negotiable, my suggestion would be to negotiate how you want this to look without running the risk of the buyer flaking, never going under contract, and never getting paid. So, and there might be a stipulation, hey, I'll pay you whatever at closing, or if after a certain amount of time, then I'll pay whatever amount. But just get clarity around all of that. I just thought that post was very interesting that woman flew off the handle because she hadn't gotten a check in, within 24 hours. So just you may have in your mind that they're going to pay you the next day, and you might think like a month or 2 later is okay. I was telling Scott this morning, I showed houses when I first started. I showed 7 houses. I was all over town, and I never got paid. And you remember things like that. So just set that expectation. But I never had anything in writing, so what am I going to do? Nothing. So just set the expectations and make sure you have all of this in writing, whether you use this form or an email or whatever, just to protect yourself and protect your time. If there's any specific instructions, for you guys, if there's something particular about that buyer that's going on, this would be a good place to just kind of have that agent disclose that information to you. You know, they've got 6 kids in tow, you know, you never know, right? I mean, they have like 4 kids, and oh my gosh, they probably spent 20 minutes just in the parking lot getting everybody buckled up. So you need to know up front that's going to take way more of your time than a normal showing would. So down at the bottom is kind of the expectations for the showing assistant for you guys. Like, yes, you've gone through trainings, you're comfortable with doing the showings, you're communicating in a timely fashion, schedule the showings, whatever, follow-up, feedback, all of that. Expectations for the buyer's agent who's hiring you is to make sure that they communicate everything with you, and that they negotiate a fair compensation based on your time and travel. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about compensation.
One quick point I was going to make in the expectations for showing assistant, we have communicate with buyer's agent in a timely manner. That's probably a question I would ask the agent when you're setting this up. Just like we talked about, we could say pay in a timely manner, and that might be that woman you're talking about had an entirely different interpretation of timely manner than I would.
Yeah.
So make sure that's communicated. Yeah. If you have some good questions to ask when someone calls you and says, "Hey, could you show some houses?" and say, "Okay, let's work this out," and you know, when would you like feedback? How quickly? Do you want me to call you after each house or text you, or do you want me to call you when I'm on my way home, or just by the end of that night, or, you know, whatever. Just make sure it's clear what that timely manner is so they understand that. And yeah, you know, any special instructions for these buyers, or there things you know, what kind of, I don't know, just the more you do it and the more you ask questions, the better experience it's going to be for everybody, I think. You know, how much information do you want me to be telling them? How, you know, things like that. Just the more everybody understands and is on the same page, the better it's going to go.
Yeah. And that agent that hires you might have very specific expectations for you. I want you to open the door, don't answer any questions. If they ask you anything about the house, you tell them to call me. I mean, they might want to maintain that level of control of that situation. And this is a crazy, unprecedented, weird market. So, you know, they might want you to give them feedback immediately. And, you know, one of their strategies for getting offers, except, you know, the early bird catches the worm. So they might want to submit an offer that same day. You need to know that ahead of time. So just ask the agent questions. Make sure that you guys are on the same page with expectations, so that there's no confusion, foul up, or bad blood later.
Absolutely.
Do you guys have questions about any of this?
I'm assuming that we're just showing agents or assistants for our Keller Williams family here.
Just
So it seems like
this
there's
is
some bad
specific to
blood.
when we say that, just bad experience, meaning, you know, someone calls you and has you show a couple houses, and you thought, well, when I get home, I'll send them an email and kind of explain how it went. And that agent was like, no, this house, like today, their offer deadline's tonight. I wanted to know as soon if they wanted to make an offer, you needed to call me right away or something, you know, and all of a sudden now there's this misunderstanding. So we're saying, you know, in the beginning, like when they hire you, say, okay, so how would you like the feedback? If they're interested, do you want me to call you right away, or do you want me to call you when I get home, or, you know, those kind of things. Just the more, just like with a client, right? When you have a client, the more you understand what they're looking for, how they want to communicate, the better. I mean, we don't expect there's going to be bad blood or anything. We're trying to just make sure we're laying out the groundwork so that those kind of things don't happen. But yeah, just this is for our office specifically. Yeah.
But just setting expectations so that you both know what's expected of the other. Because otherwise, you know, if you're expecting to hear back from that, you know, if I send a showing assistant and I know that the showing is at 11 o'clock and they're only showing one house and I don't hear anything back and I can't get a hold of them until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and I miss a deadline, it's going to be a little cranky. So, but
whereas that agent might be like the payment thing where they're thinking, I was going to let you know. I mean, I had dinner's plans. I was going to call you tomorrow and let you know. Yeah. And you're going, no, I need to know. But if you just talk about it ahead of time.
Yeah. So it's just making sure you're on the
we don't even know what we need from you. So I think this training is really important to kind of like give you some context and some teeth to it, right? Because, right, like sometimes you don't know the questions to ask as buyer's agent or as showing assistant, and this is just allowing us to like lay that foundation. And so it's a cool concept because like I don't know that I would know to communicate that with you guys as a buyer's agent, but if you're being professional and proactive and things like that up front, like I would hands down come to you again if you were asking me all these questions and it was just a completely smooth process, and where it might not be anyone's fault and maybe nobody meant any harm by it, but I'm still like, if there is a miscommunication, not that it's against you, but I just might not use you again in the future kind of thing. So like all in hypotheticals and stuff like that, but that's why
That's a great point.
this training is so important because sometimes both parties don't know the questions to ask, but if you guys at least know the questions to ask, it'll set us all up for success.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, agents in the office who might use this program, maybe have never hired someone to show a house for them. And so they don't even know where to, you guys y'all are the inaugural group here of being trained on this. And you may know more about how this works than the buyer's agents looking for help.
And by that same token, if I say, hey, I'm out of pocket, I'm going to be in a funeral for the rest of the day. I don't want the showing assistant calling me, every 30 seconds, next however long. So it's just having those conversations so you know what the expectations are. It will just make everybody's life so much easier. So, use this contract as a guideline for having those conversations up front so that you kind of know where you stand with everything.
And like we were talking about before, this is just a guideline to help frame an agreement. It's not like a contract you have to get signed and submit to Debbie or something like that. You may handle it through email. They may call you and say, hey, can you show a couple houses? And you talk through, and you may just say, okay, so what is your payment amount? How are you going to pay? And when would you expect to pay me afterwards? And say, okay, can I send you an email back, and I'll just put that down so we're on the same page or something. And you could just put this in an email form and just cover those areas versus saying, hey, we need to meet so you can sign this contract before I show a house for you. It's not that.
Debbie likes everything in writing. We should throw Debbie under the bus. She does. She likes everything in writing because then it's very black and white. If you have a verbal conversation or a conversation in passing the hallway and you didn't set any expectations and you don't know what the plan is, then, you don't get paid for 3 months. Oh, well. So.
Yeah. And if you do this and I have you come and show a couple houses for me, and we agreed that I'd pay you X amount per door within a week. And a week goes by and I haven't paid you, and you email me and I ghost you, and you keep going, that's not going to pay me. Now you have something. You can go to Debbie, and Debbie will make sure it gets taken care of. I can assure you of that. So we're really, this is to protect you guys for doing, you're going to be doing a great service for people, and we want to make sure you guys are fairly treated.
Yeah, you're investing your time into helping someone else. You're spending your gas money, so make sure that it makes sense for you.
On a deal that they're probably going to make $10,000 on, so they can pay you $100, $300 if you get 6 showings for them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So any other questions?
When do we get started?
No, I think very quick.
We're going to make an announcement, whether it's at team meeting, and then put something on Facebook so that the agents that are in the office know that you guys have been through the training. And what I want to do is I'm going to pass these around. Put your name, your contact info, so your phone and your email, and then your area or specialty. So like if I have a buyer who's looking in Castle Rock, I'm not going to call someone who lives in Loveland to do that because that's going to take them a lot of time to get down there. So, knowing people's where they live or, certain neighborhoods or, maybe luxury or maybe you are into like farm and ranch or horse property, something like that. If you live on a farm and you think you would probably have more information than most people on you know, lots of land out in Elizabeth, put that on here so that, you know, agents kind of know what your specialty is. You know, I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years. I don't think I'm really great at Westminster and Thornton. That's just out of my bubble. Denver South, Metro, no problem. So just make sure you put that out there so that people know, you know, what your areas of expertise. If you live in Littleton or, you know, you think you'd be great in those areas, Littleton, Centennial, whatever, just put that on there. I mean, nobody's gonna.
The more info, the better. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe specific, not like address, but like where you live, Littleton, Lakewood, you know, something like that, West Lakewood, or I don't know, something to kind of, and then maybe what area you're kind of willing to cover to some degree, just to get, and we'll put a spreadsheet together with that. You can always edit it, and you know, I know a lot of times you might during the week, if you're coming into the office, you might be willing to cover a different area than on a Saturday when you're coming from home.
Yeah. But I think this will just help agents, have your names and contact information so they know who has been through the class and who has not. And then it'll just give them an idea of maybe the first person they reach out to, you know, because they live in a certain area that's where their buyers are looking, or, you know, whatever. So, and then of course, I mean, all of us have car, will travel, right? So, I mean, you could show houses anywhere, but
I kind of was figuring some people might.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, if you're comfortable with that.
yeah.
You live in Platt Park, so like getting to the entire Denver metro area is easy.
Yes.
And you could write that. I live
And I'm
in
right off
Central.
25,
Yeah.
boom, I'm
Yeah.
wherever.
So yeah, just put that on there so that people know that it's not a big deal.
Can we email that information to you if we're online?
I kind of forgot. How about, why don't I put my email address in the chat, and then if you want to email me, so it's name, contact info, and you heard kind of where neighborhood you live in or part of town you live in and where you're willing to show houses.
Awesome, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought we were having like a weather emergency or something. You guys have been.
It's the morning announcements, the school morning announcements.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Do you guys have any questions online?
I don't think so. Robin had texted me and was wondering if this is going to be recorded, if there's a recording that's going to be posted.
Yes,
it is being recorded.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was it. Thank you for all this great information.
I know, Debbie's thinking like, oh my God, they did not.
Do you guys all, I mean, if somebody wants you to show a house for them this weekend, does everyone feel comfortable with what to do?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. We saw the lockbox.
Okay, so while we're sitting here, and then you can come and mess around with it. So,
it's like middle school.
Yeah,
all over.
not a fan. This is your old school, high school locker.
See them all the time though.
You do see them all the time, and it's kind of mind blowing. But so, do you guys remember how to open a high school locker? So you just spin it a bunch of times and go to the first letter, and then you have to skip one time going the opposite way, and then back again to the right.
You want to pass it around?
Practice, yeah. So the locker combo is wow on this one. So practice working on these because you will come across them. And it's funny, I did get that from someone in the office. They said, you know, you can always tell by those lock boxes that it's not a brand new agent. It's been an agent that's been doing this forever. So who will remain nameless.
So then this one is another common one. So these are a little easier. It's a combination that you just have to line up the whatever the code is. So I feel like every time I get one of these, it's 1976. I don't know why that is. This one's what, 0115. So we'll pass that along.
Those are terrible because you would break your nail trying to pull the little thing.
Yeah, it's very, those are.
Oh yeah, look at the window.
those,
these?
a lot of people just, those you can pick up at like Home Depot or Lowe's for pretty cheap, which is why a lot of people buy them. So Century Lock.
This is our awesome new technology that saves the world. That are the biggest.
This is what Debbie wants you to use because
Yes.
tracking coming and going out of houses, and for your client's safety, it's a good idea to track.
Also, I think this is the only kind that's covered by our E&O
Yes.
insurance. So if you have a listing, she's got some of these for us.
Oh, she's got like 50 of them in the
Yeah,
office.
yeah.
They'll just sign it out to you. You fill out a form with the address that you're putting it on, and then you can assign it to that property in your name, and you'll get all the lockbox info.
They're really cool. I mean, for real. Roxy, you may have more knowledge about, but so now that, so for a while we got a free membership for the Central Lock program, and if you went to the training at Smedra, they gave you your own lockbox. Then last year they changed it to where you have to start paying an annual fee. I mean, it's not $99 or
It's like
something.
$109. Yeah.
Okay. With that, if you pay for that, you have what? You have access to the app and everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure what all.
Yeah.
We have this one is on YouTube. Like so it has one lock, box that's it's white, so we have access to it on your app.
Okay.
So there's a date.
Okay. So the main thing to know with these is you like we talked about earlier, unless you really get into it, you'll probably get a day code. And then it's just a matter of how you enter the day code. There's a lot of functionality and apps and things like that you can use with it. That's awesome, but way beyond the scope of our class today.
So when you're using the Century Lock, if you have a day code, you press enter until it lights up, type in the code and enter again, and then just wait for it. Give it a second because it takes a minute to process and then it'll pop open. So just enter until it lights up, type code, enter again.
And when you hit enter to start it, you have to start typing that code within
Let it
a
think.
second or two.
Not ready. These are.
No, so
There you go.
I guess. Okay.
So it's cool, you just close it and it locks itself.
Yeah.
Oh, those, yeah, I hate those. You know what's worse is when it's like dusk time, unless you have your phone with you, and you get those, and then inevitably there's no light or anything.
I'm gonna advise you guys for safety reasons not to set showings. So know that during the winter months, it's gonna need to be done by 5 or 5:30, because there is no guarantee that they're gonna have a single outside light on, and you're gonna be fumbling around, and you can't see things like the roof or the outside of the house that they would need to see. So I always recommend not doing showings after dark.
Yeah, and if it's for your client, they're gonna wanna go back during the daytime. If it's for somebody else's client, you just ask while you're doing it.
No, when you get it open, you just, you try to
just
unlock the top.